Hello, everyone. I am Sherell Chillik, and I want to begin with a thank you to the FIA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team for allowing me to discuss a topic that I am very passionate about, that being American Black life fiction and the fine arts. I would like to start this talk with a quote from my favorite author, Toni Morrison. Her quote is from a live interview in 1990. This quote is how I currently approach art making and how I've always understood my place in the world. We are here, and we have to do something nurturing that we respect before we go. We must. It is most interesting, more complicated, more intellectually demanding, morally demanding. When approached with the idea to speak for the Food for Thought, I was excited to talk about the thing that's dear and transformational to my art practice, that being Black literature. Fun fact about me, equity within an arts education was my platform for a beauty pageant I was in 2 years ago. I don't mention this beauty pageant to highlight how beautiful I think I am, but to highlight how serious art is within every area of my life, including my side quests. This Black American focused talk will give you a brief overview of the rich history of literature and the fine arts, demystify that importance to the Black American population. I will be using terms like Negro, Black, and African American interchangeably in this lecture. This will be to differentiate time periods within American history. I will start by posing some simple questions, answering them, giving you artists who are actively pursuing the same interests as I am, and I will be ending this talk with my current work at Cranbrook Academy of Art. The work that I made at Cranbrook is directly tied to this lecture. Here is the first question. Why is Black literature and art beneficial? The answer to this question will come from the book Negro Building, Black Americans in the World of Fairs and Museums, and its mission statement. I believe that this is answered the best possible way. It is to give an accurate sense of identity and worth regarding American Negroes, by demonstrating the quality of their depth and contribution to the world culture, and particularly to the New World. At the time, it was called International Afro-American Museum. It is now the Charles Wright Museum. What are some benefits of Black art and literature? Literature and the fine arts are where we can find and reevaluate ourselves through images and texts, through the generations, and find new meanings through them. Benefits also include, for the Black American, includes widening the realm of Black critical theory and philosophy, preserving history through a Black lens, providing social commentary and reflections on culture and expression, celebrating heritage and promoting positive self-images, promoting an equitable world by fostering empathy, nuance, understanding, and resilience. I have just told you how Black creatives approach using the Black image and its importance. Now I'm going to tell you how non-Black creatives have approached using the Black image in literary and fine art ways. In American literature, historically, the examples of the Black or Africanist presence, as Toni Morrison mentions in her book, Whiteness and the Literary Imagination, most non-Black Americans have never read any Black texts, or they simply refuse to read them. They have been dismissed as political. This makes the Black or Africanist presence wholly racialized, limited, mystified, or overly sensualized. When considering the Black presence in literature, little to nothing is contributed to the imagination of non-Black writers in America. The Black women images are always limited to mammies or Jezebels, while the Black male image has been limited to brutes or sambos. We know what a mammy and a Jezebel is, but we're going to talk about brutes and sambos. Brutes, meaning aggressive, sex-crazed, dangerous Black men. And sambos, meaning passive idiots or safe enough to be in the public. They refuse to acknowledge Black humanity and its nuances, only seeing the Black image, the Black person, as a tool for capitalism. How does the invented world of fiction relate to everyday Black life? I paired it with this quote, and I'm going to answer this afterwards. The question is, how come we can't be as Black as we are and still be universal? I think that's a great question. You may wonder how these two statements relate to each other. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you. Racial fictions detach themselves from limitations of propaganda and genre fiction, allowing the work to be seen as general, universal art. Black life takes a new social class, cultural standing, documents life complexity, and wrestles with existence on a universal level. Through fiction, it has allowed for the Black presence to be universal. How does the master narrative impact the advancement of Black art's universality? I'm going to define master narrative, and I'm going to use Toni Morrison's definition. Master narrative is defined by her as an ideological script being imposed by whoever people in authority on everybody else. So how does the master narrative impact the advancement of Black art's universality? The master narrative has created an impression in the minds of the American population that the art Black America makes must speak for the collective at all times, meaning being seen as a tool for service, wild, or inhuman. It must be created from a place of fetishized trauma. The master narrative is convinced that the most important fact about our depth is that our skin is Black and refuses to see past outward identity. It limits humanity towards Black American history and experience. Some examples of Africanist idioms in non-Black literature include alien, fear, illegal sexuality, surrogate, value, and class relationships between races. Those idioms were and are used to describe the non-Black presence against the Black presence in literature and the fine arts. Shakespeare has been taught in American English classes as universal literature, but I would like to add another author to that list, Toni Morrison. She talks about her people, country, faith, trials, and politics of the time like Shakespeare. I compare these two to simply state that his works were never considered white racial literary works. When she was alive, and recently, her work is being humbled, heavily critiqued, and dismissed as if her contributions to American literature were never praiseworthy. So I'm going to discuss some basic principles of art and literature we should be considering when talking about universality and if it's really good. In literature, regardless of race, we should judge the quality of literature by these principles. Structure, plot, setting, imagination, emotional truth, perspective, tone, precision, theme, and my favorite, risk and consequence. We should be judging art, and if it's good, by these standards. Composition, form, shape, rhythm, movement, scale, proportion, contrast, emphasis, unity, harmony. Now that we talked about the principles, let's talk about criticality, beginning with the individual artist's perspective, then the literary perspective. Beginning with a quote from guess who? Toni Morrison. The individual artist is by nature a questioner and a critic. That's what she does. Her questions and criticisms are her work, and she is frequently in conflict with the status quo. But the artist can't help that if she is to have any integrity at all in her art. Thinking about criticality, thinking critically about Black representation in the fine and literary arts. What does that even mean? It means to examine how art objects reflect or refine the social production of the Black image. Social production being defined as a collective process of how society creates and promotes ideas of value, visual culture, wealth, social life, and skill. What is visual culture? Visual culture is a study of how objects and images shape culture. Books like The Soul of a Nation Reader examine and critique museum institutions like the MoMA, Whitney Museum of American Art, and local gallery spaces. It discusses the representation of Black artists in American history, curation, activism, obligation, liberation, and aesthetics from the 1960s to the 1980s. The essays in this book express the sentiments that Black American artists face today. This is one of my favorite quotes from the book. It is from Melvin Edwards. He says, "The art establishment is offended by the fact that it can be pressured into an exhibition of the work of the American Black artist. Historically, American museums did not show the work of African Americans because they would not consider African American art an integral part of American art." The purposeful exclusion of Black Americans in art spaces have led to many boycotts, artist groups, and popular art movements like the Black Arts Movement, creation of museums like for Black artists like the Studio Museum of Harlem. Those are just very popular examples. There are hundreds more. When Black students like me enter art schools, ideas surrounding history, philosophy, and making are primarily white-centered. This is taught to students as if we, Black artists, do not have examples of excellence in those fields. As a young art student, I would have loved to learn more about these Black art movements, philosophers, critics, and to have seen them respected as American artists. To further this conversation about books, I have added to the conversation information about two great contributors to the Harlem Renaissance movement, Alain Locke and W.E.B. Du Bois. Starting with Alain Locke. Alain Locke, born 1885, passed in 1964, was one of the founding fathers of the Harlem Renaissance movement, the editor of The New Negro, a critic, philosopher. He created The New Negro as a collection of essays and poetry on African American art, including music. His writings became a standard for teaching African American art. He promoted that artists should create art for art's sake, not only focus on racial struggles. Locke defined the possibilities and the parameters of African American art and gave it a past as well as a future. This is what Marion Connell said. Locke was known for introducing Black art to Black communities and mainstream America. He was one of the few art critics who valued art independent from European influence and looked at art with a broader lens. He enjoyed the decorative and symbolic material used to create African art and simply artistic expression. Locke believed in the individuality of an artist, and that was a fundamental aspect of the human experience. In the reimagined African American art exhibition at the DIA, he was quoted as saying, "Art must discover and reveal the beauty which prejudice and caricature have overlaid." I'm gonna go back. For Locke, the great race welding of the American Negroes and the great migration allowed for great group expression, self-determination, and creativity. The great race welding of Negroes included, but not limited to, West Indians and the southern Black population. The masses of Black migrants came with a new outlook spiritually and mentally, and therefore changed their approach to art making, education, poetry, fine arts, music. Although I mentioned the fine arts and literature, the greatest form of art that came from American culture, according to Locke, is music, specifically the Negro spirituals. Another critic, sociologist, philosopher, and Pan-Africanist who contributed to the preservation of Black American arts and culture is W.E.B. Du Bois. He is famously known for his book, The Soul of Black Folk. Du Bois believed all art is propaganda and should be used solely to promote positive attitudes about the Black race, like happiness, love, liberation, and the validity of the Black humanity and intelligence. He believed all work should serve to uplift the collective. The Black artists should be taken seriously, as well as their humanity. I want to remind you earlier about how I discussed how non-Black creatives were viewed the Black people, how they used Black images in their literature. He wanted to combat that by doing the same thing, but in a positive way. But America viewed Black people as a collective, not individuals. Black Americans are individuals among ourselves, but outwardly we are seen collectively. This is a quote from Du Bois in June 1926. He says, "This vision of beauty, this understanding of it to set the world right, was not a vision that positioned the experience of beauty being passively received. Art and beauty exist not merely to amuse or to make us comfortable, to bring us pleasure amidst the world's tumult, but to broadcast the possibility of human freedom in the United States, Black American freedom in particular." Here is another quote on his idea of propaganda and how he wants to use it. "Thus, all art is propaganda and ever must be. Despite the wailing of the purist, I stand in utter shamelessness and say that whatever art I have for writing has always been used for propaganda, for gaining the right for Black folk to love and enjoy." For fun, I added another critic to the conversation, William Stanley Braithwaite. He was born in 1878 and he died in 1962 in Boston, Massachusetts. He is popularly known as an African-American writer, poet, literary critic, anthologist, and publisher. What is an anthologist? It is an editor or compiler of poems, songs, or literature that is centered around a specific theme, person, or place. He believed from the very beginning in this country, the Negro has been without the formal recognition in art and literature, in all their creative accomplishments. He held similar beliefs about the sinister and social fetishized use of the Negro in American literature as Toni Morrison, using examples like the Mammy caricature and Uncle Tom of the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin to discuss his poor taste and false equivalence to Black portraiture. In his The New Negro essay, he recalls the poetry and writings of Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was born in 1872 and he died in 1906 in Ohio, and how Dunbar uses pathos and humor to deliver the dilemma of the soul of his fictional Black characters. Dunbar, according to him, was one of the first writers who deepened the expression of Negro life. Dunbar was one of the first Black poets and writers to gain national recognition. His poem Sympathy, written in 1899, references why the caged bird sings and its cry to the heavens. I'm going to present to you all the last section of the poem Sympathy. I felt that it was the most rewarding aesthetic experience. Aesthetic experience meaning an emotional, not always practical experience that passively activates your senses. That's what that poem does for me. I know why the caged bird sings. Ah, me. When his wing is bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free, it's not a carol of joy or glee, but a prayer that he sends from his heart's deep core, but a plea that upward to heaven he flings. I know why the caged bird sings. Paul Laurence Dunbar. Now, I said all of that to say, to create true portraiture in paint, music, literature, we must consider the soul of the sitter. In this next section, I have selected a few contemporary artists who are collaborating with or have collaborated with literary artists. These Black artists have contributed to and continue to contribute to the nation's cultural capital, promoting the ideas of humanity, love, truth, and understanding where they belong in America. The artists I have selected include Glenn Ligon, Sabrina Nelson, Valerie Maynard, and me. These artists are working in painting or mixed media. We're going to start with Glenn Ligon. I first encountered his work at the Detroit Institute of Art's 30 Americans exhibition. This is an exhibition I would continuously refer back to when considering my own presence in art institutions, specifically being a Black woman. Glenn was born in 1960 in the Bronx, New York. He's a conceptual artist working with American history, literature, and society. He is known for his landmark text-based paintings, influenced by the writings and speeches of 20th century cultural figures like Zora Neale Hurston and James Baldwin. His works are held in permanent collections worldwide, including the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York and the Centre Pompidou in Paris. Glenn works alongside the texts of well-known writer James Baldwin. The work that I will be showing you, well, one of the pieces I will be showing you, is from a series that he began in 1977, where he is abstracting the text from Baldwin's essay, Stranger in the Village. Glenn Ligon says, maybe my task is to introduce names like James Baldwin, Ralph Ellison, or Zora Neale Hurston into spaces, into a painting practice. This way, when you walk into a gallery, you must deal with them as figures and ideas within their work. I really enjoy that quote because that is what you will see later is what I'm doing with my Toni Morrison series. These are the works that I spoke about. Red Hands. This is one of my favorites. This was created in 1993. The painting on the left is from the Stranger in the Village series. This is from 2023. He's still working on this series where he's abstracting James Baldwin texts. And the one on the right is a coloring book series of Malcolm X's son, Frederick Douglass, Boy with Bubbles. The next artist is Sabrina Nelson. She was born in the wake of the rebellion of 1967 in Detroit, Michigan. Her work focuses on spirit, motion, and intimacy. And her work is influenced by the Yoruba religion as well as Eastern and African philosophies. Her degree is in painting, but she works in mixed media, drawing, painting, video, installation. Her popular series, Frontline Prophet, James Baldwin, was created over a time span of 8 years. It began when she experienced a supernatural encounter in Paris after a James Baldwin conference. In her room, she began to draw his face and felt something touch her twice. During Inktober, she said to herself, "What am I going to draw?" Something whispered, "Baldwin." 31 days of ink drawings turned into 91 days. Her James Baldwin series titled Frontline Prophet has been shown, started in Harlem, went to New Orleans, then to Oakland, California, Chicago, Detroit, and Paris. This is a very small example of the Frontline Prophet, and these are some of her Inktober drawings. They're really beautiful. Now I'm going to introduce you to an artist who worked alongside both Baldwin and Toni Morrison. Her name is Valerie Maynard. She remained committed, let's go back. She remained committed to raising consciousness among Black artists throughout her career, once telling the artist Mildred Thompson, Maynard said, "We are the cultural voice of the people, and we have to know that, acknowledge that." Morrison wrote the introduction to Maynard's Lost and Found series in 1989. This is what it said. Let's go back. "I said impossible things happen, but so does the possible, the necessary. For this is the art that summons, that creates what should be and dismantles what should not. The medium is dream, but the power is magic. Both silenced and articulated to become deeply rooted in earth. This is soaring under your feet." Here are some quick facts about Valerie Maynard. Her culturally honed aesthetic comes from her political activism. Her art was a way to voice her concerns with injustices she witnessed or heard about. She wanted her work to contribute to the commentary surrounding the global struggle against tyranny and oppression. Her work focused on the nuances of the Black experience, using printmaking, specifically Afrocentric lino cuts, as a way of social justice and practice. She worked alongside great artists and writers of her time, like Morrison and Baldwin. Her family was used as a reference for James Baldwin's novel, If Beale Street Could Talk. That's one of my favorite Baldwin stories. She took classes at the MoMA on the weekends and was an artist in residence at the Studio Museum of Harlem. Few places where she taught, just a few, include the Studio Museum of Harlem, University of Massachusetts, and Howard University. This is the first page that I just read from the excerpt by Toni Morrison for her Lost and Found series. These are some of my favorite images. These are not all from Lost and Found, but these are just some of the examples of some of works of her that I enjoy. Now, Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison, born in 1931, she passed recently in 2019. Her real name is Chloe Anthony Wolford, and born in Lorain, Ohio. She graduated with degrees in English from Howard and masters from Cornell. Her first novel was The Bluest Eye, and she would later write 9 to 11 other novels. In 1988, she won the Pulitzer Prize for her fifth novel, Beloved, which later became a film. In 1993, she was the first African-American woman to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. She has written many fictions, lectures, a lot of literary criticism, and children's books. This is what Toni Morrison had to say about the arts. I am a writer, and my faith in the world of art is intense, but not irrational or naive, because art takes us and makes us take a journey beyond price, beyond cost, into bearing witness into the world as it is and as it should be. Art invites us to know beauty and to solicit it, summon it from even the most tragic circumstances. In a tweet honoring writer Toni Morrison, this is what President Obama had to say. Toni Morrison was a national treasure, as good as a storyteller, as captivating in person as she was on the page. Her writing was a beautiful, meaningful challenge to our conscience and our moral imagination. What a gift to breathe the same air as her, if only for a while. Now let's talk about me. Sherell Chillik. I am a painter from Detroit, Michigan. I received my Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Painting from the College of Creative Studies in 2018. I currently attend Cranbrook Academy of Art Master's Program for Painting. I've been showing my work in competitive national and regional fine art exhibitions and museums since 2019. My figurative and mixed media works capture humanity through a Black lens. I am interested in the reliance of the supernatural by Black Americans who persevere through historical hardships like slavery and racism to contemporary problems surrounding the circulation of our images. I am using found material from thrift and antique shops in collaboration with fictions by Toni Morrison to expand upon my narratives. I am questioning the restraints placed on the universality of the Black American experience. I enjoy the juxtaposition of history, fiction, and the present to capture the Black gaze. I get asked a lot, why are you focusing on Toni Morrison's literature for the basis of the work you're making at Cranbrook? Why does she even matter? When I lived in Detroit, I never had to question or rationalize my Blackness in certain spaces. I was the default. Moving to Flint and attending fine art institutions, I became aware quickly that I was other. In my search for community, and it was a long search, I turned to literature. Reading first Zora Neale Hurston, Their Eyes Are Watching God during slow periods at work. Then I quickly gravitated to other names like Toni Morrison. I felt seen and realized I had to expand upon this, leading to this series. I enjoy Morrison's poetic prose, the way she understands language, conversation, and her unwavering affection for Black life. I'm collaborating with Toni Morrison Novels and Americana memorabilia to create these works. I'm using Aunt Jemima Mammy figurines that I find when antiquing. I sit with these objects and I'm confronting that charged experience within my paintings. When going through antique and thrift shops, I started looking for Black imagery I just wanted to see myself in these spaces. But I ended up finding more negative imagery than positive. This imagery that I'm finding makes me think about Moments from the New Negro by Alan Locke that I said earlier, and how he discusses issues about caricatures and if they will ever die. I think of my figurine pieces as an extension of this Toni Morrison series, or a blend of it. I like to see it all as one, but Toni Morrison is where it started. I think of this series as a reclamation of the Black image, and giving this memorabilia a new life, depth, and a deep dive into American history that's actively being erased. Between literature and Americana memorabilia, the link I found is magic. Morrison novels feature moments of the supernatural within the Black ordinary life, and she uses the mammy trope in novels like Tar Baby. The mammy reflects demand for Black servitude, sacrifice, and sorrow, and limited job options. The way that Aunt Jemima's pancakes became so fluffy was magical after all. Aunt Jemima in my art world is this magical Negro with a twist. The work that I'm making in my last year in my MFA program will be focusing on a horror supernatural short story about a mammy figurine. This horror take on the mammy figurine is still in the work, so you can ask me about that later. Now it's time that I wrap this up. In conclusion, I've always been interested in narrative. I am simply acknowledging and honoring the greats that have come before me, and I hope that I have inspired you to pick up some Black literature, maybe a Toni Morrison or a Baldwin novel. Just know I do have some suggestions if you would like one. I'm going to end this talk with 2 quotes from Toni Morrison, which captures my attitude towards centering Black narratives and its connection with the supernatural. Let's go back. I do not like the notion of not having a grand army to defend me, but I can face that. What I cannot face is living without my art. And last, but I think they believed as I do. It may be true that people say I didn't ask to be born. I think we did. And that's why we're here. We are here, and we have to do something nurturing that we respect before we go. We must. Thank you.